Today, building dams was so cheap once. Like back in the day, labor was cheap, energy was cheap. You didn't need all this insurance and environmental review. I mean, like when they built Hoover Dam, it was like in the 30s during the Depression. It was like, whatever, man, just go for it. People were like, it was just chump change. Like it was pretty nickel and dime compared to today's dollars for doing a construction project of that scale. My students are like, why don't we just blow it up? And like, the problem isn't breaking a dam. Like, one psycho with some explosives could take out a dam. No challenge there. You don't even need a high school diploma to take out a dam. The problem is, what are you going to do in the split second after?
Yeah.
You know, now that we've had a reservoir for 40 years, people live on the edge of that river. People get their food from the edge of that river. When that thing comes flooding through, projections, if you lose Glen Canyon Dam, are like 300,000 dead in 24 hours or less. Like, that would be the deadliest event, I believe.
It's really nice.
Checkmate. Like, we have built these, like, really dangerous things, and everybody's like, now what are we going to do with it? And everybody's like, well, my department, like, really nobody knows. Like, truly there is no plan.
So when it fills up, we just kind of got out of possessed.
That sounds good to me, because I've heard nothing more compelling than that. You know, essentially, what probably we would need to do is engineer a way for them to overflow, like turn it into a waterfall, and then leave it there. Because moving it is like going to take that much sediment. Like that usually went to the ocean, and the ocean would have sedimentary rock layers building the Sea of Cortez at the end of the Colorado River. Like there is no place to use that much sand. It's the biggest pile of sand ever built. It's just underwater right now.
Would they decent fertilizer or no?
There must be a nutrient load in there, but most of it is anoxic because it's been buried by other sediment, so it's also got like swamp gas. Yeah. Probably not that, like, I don't know, man. I don't know.
The waterfall is probably going by the ocean.
That seems to be like the only thing that maybe we could get away with.
Well, there's no reason why it shouldn't. We're just re-engineering it, right?
Concrete wears out when you get it wet.
We'll bring concrete.
But we already built it out of concrete.
Well, I mean, you can like put stuff on top of concrete.
Right. So it's like a Yeah. So like you would blow out the top and then put like a metallized lip on it.
Yeah.
And then hope that you can make a clean fall for the water. And by the way,
calculate the fall of water.
you know, it should be engineerable. It's just like you're putting a lot of faith in your engineers. All right. Okay. If we are done with number 31, number 32 is a really, really challenging study goal because tidal power or ocean electricity, this is sort of a new concept. There's so many ideas that we haven't really figured out which one to develop.
I thought it was like really old because the Brits used it like way back.
Fine, smart guy. I mean to say that as a major electricity source, like a way to produce electricity at large scale, we still haven't figured out what's like a cookie cutter, like take this design and where it fits and where it doesn't. So number 32 is tidal or wave or oceanic generation. And there are many ideas. Number one, which has been used, is called tidal barrage. It's exactly a hydroelectric dam, but much bigger. Your reservoir is the bay. You close it off with a dam, and inside the dam, you've got turbines. Unlike this reservoir that fills throughout the year, this reservoir fills twice a day. Does everybody know that the ocean goes up and down, high tide, low tide?
Well,
I know, it is nuts.
They basically close off bays and beaches and everything, like shut it down.
Yep. I know. And by the way, bays are ecologically critical. Salt water is highly corrosive compared to fresh water.
They're better to swim in because it's not.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. The only places that we've tried these, it's just been a disaster. Politically, they're a nightmare. But here's the idea. Let me explain. During high tide, you open up the reservoir, the dam, and the incoming tide will spin the turbine as the reservoir fills up, then you close it. You wait until low tide, and then you let the bay drain out the outgoing tide all at once. So at low tide, it spins the turbine again. The turbine only runs when the reservoir is emptying to the ocean or when the ocean is filling the reservoir.
They don't get that much electricity.
Dang, dude, what is it with you hating on tidal barrage? Yeah, you're right. Yeah. So they probably produce, and depending on where you are in the world, you know, some places the tides are really extreme. Some places the tides are really subtle. So in the places with a really extreme tide, you can produce as much as 16 hours per day. But in a lot of other places, that number is as little as 6, 4 even. It's just not cost effective to do it in many places. At the very northern latitudes, like Alaska, British Columbia, Norway, they can get away with this. And there is one, I believe the first ever built anywhere in the world, wouldn't you know it, Argentina. Because they have some pretty big bays down here. And so they tried to build one of these. The corrosive nature of the salt is a big problem. Corrosion sucks. And you've given up on ecological functionality. This is like, you know, the baby seal pups get blended into like smoothie of seal. Like, you have to club them before they go through. You know, the ecology of bays is really some of the most critical in the ocean. You can't find a more sensitive part of the sea than a coastal interface, and if you have a bay, because it's sheltered, larger animals of the ocean will need that bay. Bays is where you go to find large mammals, for example. Yeah.
I know it costs a lot more money for infrastructure, but can, like they just find a place on the coast where it's pretty much a barren cliff and nothing's really there, and just make like a little thing out of concrete that's like almost like a tower that fills up and does the same thing.
I guess there's probably some diminishing returns though. Electricity is so cheap. So you're talking about building an aquarium in the ocean that holds 1 trillion gallons of concrete? Like, get to work on that. You know, like $4 gajillion later, you might sell electricity at 10 cents a kilowatt hour. I'm like, oh yeah, that'll pay off. Yeah.
Aren't they doing this at Denver?
I don't know. Are they?
Yes.
Tidal barrage or a different type of system?
Yeah, tidal.
No, barrage, like with a dam? Dam on a bay? Yes, they are, but not barrage. We'll get to that. Yes.
Do you have a fan for this? Or you just put like a dam in the middle of the ocean, so to speak?
Well, I mean, if you had like a flat cliff line, you'd have to have more concrete above the reservoir. The nice thing about a bay is you've already got the reservoir, and all you got to do is close the gap.
But you can just like put a turbine like this. We have a
Oh, we'll get to that. Yes, you can. Yes.
Is that why they have that like rocky thing out of the ocean?
No. Afraid one. I think I don't know. Like I think it protects the harbor from surges, but it doesn't always.
make more sense to do it.
Mermaid habitat.
Well, it'd be smarter like to try estuaries more because, I mean, I know they're important ecologically, but they have brackish water usually, and that's probably less corrosive.
You know, bays usually have an outlet of a river, so this would be slightly brackish too. But you know, just the fact that there is measurable salt, you've already reached the corrosion level that's.
Yeah, like where you go from fresh to any amount of water.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, again, it's doable, but your price keeps skyrocketing. So, tidal barrage, not really happening. Maybe at the most extreme, one of these that does actually work is in Wales. They spent 15 billion pounds to build it. Yeah. But it would make like 8,000 megawatts a day. So it's like 3 nuclear power stations for billions of dollars. Alright. Next. There are a variety of ways to make what are called marine turbines. And essentially, it's just like a windmill, but it's underwater. The big challenges are that currents are actually not that powerful in 99% of the ocean. You need really strong currents to overcome that drag. You know, to push all those magnets past those wires, that takes energy. So the real challenge here is the engineering of how much current versus how much electrical current.
Don't animals like sea turtles take the current places? So wouldn't that like fill them?
It, you know, they don't usually swim into rocks. They don't swim into rocks.
So they're smart enough to avoid it.
Maybe, because these don't spin really fast. It's not blender status. It's like, so people are thinking maybe you put like a little underwater kazoo on there that makes like a little tiny sound, and maybe put a couple lights, and you know, the wildlife issue doesn't seem to be that big of a whoop. It's just the engineering doesn't make good efficiency. You need super strong currents, and so there's only a few places in the entire planet where you've got like super strong currents.
Where are those places?
You know, I don't really know.
Yeah, like those like a wind turbine.
Next. There is this thing that does seem to be pretty close to doable. It's called a tidal reef. And the way that tidal reefs work is on sandbars, between the high and the low tide, you basically build like a horizontal axis turbine. Like that. So the water rushing up and down the seafloor spins them this way. So when water rushes up or down, they spin. Notice
that the axis is vertical, the